All right. So next we have the Broadband Access Ohio and Management Council, Geoff Andrews. The chair of that council and the CEO of that organization. So, Geoff, I know that you've got a lot on your plate and a lot of projects that you're working on. We're excited to hear about.
All right. Well, Kirby, thanks very much. And I understand that the audience is broader than I initially knew about, and I want to welcome all of you, whether you're down the street or from the far-flung corners of the world. I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk about Broadband Access Ohio. Broadband Access Ohio was launched in early 2022, and if I can, there we go, find my mouse. We're one of Ohio's leading organizations supporting high-speed, high-quality internet for all Ohioans. As Doug noted, this really is a statewide issue and a worldwide competition, really. The Broadband Access Ohio has organizational members across Ohio, ranging from cities and townships and counties and various municipalities to information technology centers that Kirby referenced very early on. Those information technology centers make up the Ohio Education Computer Network, and the coordinating body for all that is called the Management Council, where I serve as the CEO. So while you're all familiar with municipalities, I want to digress for a second to explain what information technology centers are. We refer to them as ITCs, so if I drop into that acronym, I apologize. But ITCs have existed mostly under the radar for 45 years. At one time, there were 27 of them across the state. Through various efficiencies and changes in technology, we're now down to 17. They provide core IT services to schools. Have you ever thought about or wondered how teachers get paid or students get scheduled, or how billions of dollars that state education dollars get distributed to schools and the right amount gets to each school? Or how the state report cards that came out a week ago get compiled. That stuff is all run by ITCs, who manage all that data and operate all the software, the training, and the support for the schools. By law, ITCs need to provide K-12 fiscal and payroll services, student information systems, internet, digital library resources, and EMIS, which is the state data system. However, ITCs often provide a lot more services than that, and in some cases that includes fiber infrastructure, not only for the schools they serve, but also for nearby municipalities and other entities that exist in their geographic footprint. In the Youngstown area, there's an ITC called Access, and each ITC has a sort of a tortured acronym that I won't explain, but they're called Access in Youngstown. And they provide broadband to a host of local organizations there. Over in Clark County, the Mavecca ITC has 60 odd miles of fiber supporting municipal needs, as well as their K-12 clients. In Northwest Ohio, the Nowaka ITC has a big fiber footprint, and SWOCA in Butler County down in Southwest Ohio has been actively building a shared fiber infrastructure, working with local communities. So, why did Broadband Access Ohio come to be? It was launched because we know how important it is to have a collective voice at the state level, advocating for community broadband programs and private-public partnerships like we've heard about today. Municipalities and ITCs both have some robust fiber infrastructure that is vital to the shared success of their areas. Broadband Access Ohio also serves as a watchdog of sorts. In 2021, just a couple years ago, there was an effort at the Ohio State House by the General Assembly to remove funding from community broadband programs, and in fact, to shutter or eliminate community broadband programs that are great economic success stories that you've heard about today. And while that codicil seeking to effectively create more regional private monopolies was removed at the final hour through a lot of the action of communities in Ohio, there was inserted in its place a pot of hundreds of millions of dollars for broadband expansion that explicitly excluded access to public entities to private-owned fiber consortia and public-private partnerships like the ones you've heard about this morning. Those funds were reserved for furthering the generation of regional monopolies that have created many of our present challenges by establishing the haves and have-nots that we're now trying to overcome. And I do want to applaud Doug in Dublin for committing to getting fiber to every home. That's really important. The innovation and the drive of the private sector are important components to what makes our state thrive. We need them, don't get me wrong. However, at the same time, the communities, the townships, the counties, the cities, the schools, the emergency services, and all the other private entities that know their residents and know their needs have to be an integral part of any infrastructure solution so that it will actually meet the needs of the local communities and the local areas. Among other reasons, this is why we have 600 some school districts in Ohio, not one. If we want all Ohioans to be able to compete with people in other states or other countries and participate in this 21st century economy, there's no question we all need to have access to broadband, whether it's for educational purposes or employment and career purposes, like we were just hearing about, or research and more. As you've heard about this morning, there are all these opportunities. Everyone needs to have access to this broadband. Now, there are plenty of analogies that are relevant here. I'd like to contemplate for a moment the distribution of, say, electricity or telephone or mail service across the nation that was developed a century ago, or roads. You know, whether we're talking about a county 2-lane or the Eisenhower interstate system of the 50s, without access to electricity, there are parts of the country that couldn't participate meaningfully. And without publicly funded and publicly owned roads, commerce and free enterprise would be unable to compete and innovate. Now, those roads, they're generally designed and built by private companies, coordinated with and compensated by local, state, or federal agencies. Road building companies are certainly able to make a fair return on their efforts, and they should. They compete to win competitively bid government contracts. There's a vitally important role for the private sector to determine how to most efficiently create, build, and innovate. Once those roads are built, however, everyone can travel on them, and any charges for using those roads typically come in the form of fuel surcharges or other public cost recovery mechanisms. The charges don't show up as a monopoly on the books of some of the company that built the road. And then the extra magic of fiber kicks in this analogy, because when you need more lanes on a road, you have to build them the entire length of the road at a substantial cost. And if you want higher speeds, you got to separate those lanes. With fiber, as you all know, you change the electronics on each end and voila, you have more lanes at higher speeds and you never even touch the rest of the road. Now, I don't want anyone to misread this as a criticism of capitalism and markets. Markets create efficiencies, that's well documented. However, relying on the private sector to have the public interest first and foremost in mind, I would suggest is a little naive. Whatever our politics, we can all acknowledge that the public sector fills a critical role here. We need water we can all drink. We need air we can all breathe. I've lived in parts of the world where you can't drink the water coming out of the tap and you can't venture outside in some days to breathe the air. We don't want that. Returning to broadband now for a minute, it's abundantly clear that broadband creates economic and educational opportunity for Ohioans and others. That argument is unassailable. We've heard it here today and we've heard it everywhere else. Broadband has got to be like roads, accessible to everyone in a manner that meets individuals and communities where they are, in a way that is consumable and affordable, opening up opportunity for all, and priced in a way that is driven by competition and innovation, not by monopoly. Regional monopolies have never served our state or country well. The subsidies we keep generating for the private sector to lay fiber that remains privately owned, preventing access for other entities to compete on that fiber, is short-sighted. At best, it addresses errors from the previous subsidy, and this is like driving in the rearview mirror, trying to correct the errors of the past, not broadening an inclusive vision of the future like you've heard about here this morning. Broadband Access Ohio exists to promote the programs of our members and showcase how our state needs this all of the above approach to broadband access. Our team not only advocates for broadband access in the State House, we also utilize media to tell our stories. We have legal partners and lobbying partners, and our members have been generous in helping fund our efforts. So in closing, I want to say, if you're interested in joining Broadband Access Ohio, feel free to email me, visit the Broadband Access Ohio website. We'd love to include your voice in our message. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to tell you a little bit about BAO this morning and what we're up to.
Thank you, Geoff. Truly important work. Prior to the establishment of Broadband Access Ohio, whenever there were any kind of legislative changes that would influence municipal broadband, there really wasn't a cohesive response. And when there was, it was a Herculean effort, if you will, establishing this kind of network and this lobbying ability for these public institutions and public fiber advocates is incredibly important to the future of our municipalities, our school districts, so on and so forth. So thank you for the hard work that you and your members are putting in on that front. On the other front, to build on your point about not realizing all of the background work that goes into creating these effective school systems throughout Ohio. We actually used the Management Council's work as one of our examples for why Ohio is an intelligent community, specifically because of those networks of ITCs, information technology centers, and ESCs, the educational service centers, and how different school districts come together to establish buying power and economies of scale, and you provide that umbrella of support, and then they're able to take that umbrella of support, services, software, connectivity, and really make a local impact based off of the unique needs of a given region or area. So two very great examples of ways in which Ohio is really driving forward in this regard. So thank you for joining us.